and welcome to a special edition of the Knittingman podcast. It's all about knitting Kitty's vest, and anybody that saw my recent video where I was asked to knit a vest in a day by Kitty, lots of people came back to me and they said we'd really like the pattern for that vest. So, and then people were saying, oh, can you do a video about it, but can you put it on Ravelry? So over the last couple of days, I've managed to put it on Ravelry. So it's now a free download pattern on Ravelry. So you can go on Ravelry and print it off, and you've got the pattern for Kitty's vest. So if you want to do that first, and then what I'm going to do in this episode is take you through the process of making that vest. But first of all, I'm just going to show you a clip in case you missed that episode where I knit this vest in a day, or tried to knit this vest in a day. I'm just going to show you a clip of Kitty trying this vest on for the first time.
And we're back. Hello.
And so here is the finished jumper.
Sorry, I've set it to my height, not my dad's.
So yeah, I'm bending down because Kitty set the camera.
I'm very short. Blame the knitting widow.
Yeah, there you go. So
stunning. To me, I think it's like Renaissance painting colours. Renaissance painting, what is it?
You said sort of like Monet or something.
But yeah. No, it's a mix.
The back is a lot more pink and colourful than the front. I sort of ran out of grey, and then I sort of improvised from there.
It's nice. Do you go for a tone and then pick colours around it?
I really didn't pick colours hardly at all. I just kept knitting and just kept picking up the nearest thing. So yeah, so this is the first time that Kitty's tried it on, and as I say, I guessed at the size, and I'm really happy with the sizing of it.
Yeah, it looks
is it
perfect.
Oversized enough? It's not too...
I thought you could go a bit more oversized.
Yeah.
But I think this is completely wearable. I'd wear it, definitely.
Let's show everyone the back.
It's a really lovely fit on me because it fits me perfectly here, and I think it kind of adds like a nice strong shoulder as well, which makes it look quite masculine at the same time, which is really, really
and
nice.
The armpits
and the colours
you quite like the V, because we were having an R-ing about a V or a round neck.
I think a V's in at the moment because everyone's got collars. I found that crazy. You know, like in Big Bang Theory, he sticks on the turtleneck.
No.
Yeah, like that. That look good with a turtleneck, Dad.
Yeah. So generally we're happy with that.
Yeah, I'm really happy.
Yeah.
I think you're showing all those TikTok girls up, Dad.
But the thing is, Kit, you could knit that. It's so simple to knit. Yeah, you could knit it.
Really?
But do you think you would ever have a go at something like that?
Yeah, definitely. I feel like at the time I probably wasn't as bothered, but now being vegan and being, you know, a lot more aware after having my kids, I feel like it's the next thing, really. I'm not into fast fashion anymore. It's all vintage, and if I can hand make something, I will. So maybe I'll give it a go in the winter, Dad. Okay,
all right. I'm sure people would like to see that. Yeah, I'll line you up for that.
All right, go on then.
Because people want to see that.
You can watch me cry.
You won't. You'll be able to knit something like that. It's easy peasy. Yeah.
All right, if you say so.
Okay.
Aren't I lucky? Knittingman vest. Haha. They all want it, Dad. I'm wearing it.
So that was Kitty trying the vest on for the first time, and she's lent it back to me for us to do this episode. So so the free pattern is available on Ravelry for you to download, and what I'm going to do in this show is I'm going to take you through it line by line and show you what I did. So first of all, I'm going to show you how I cast on. What I wanted to do before I cast on, I was just going to show you how it's constructed. So it's made in one piece. So I'll just grab it. Stay there, Joe, don't move. So it's made in one piece. So you cast on here, you knit the front, and then you knit down the back, and then you cast off. So the construction is like this. Okay, so you cast on your 50 stitches. So that's your 50 stitches, and that distance there is 20 inches from there to there. So you cast on your 50 stitches, and then you knit for 34 rows. So that's 34 rows, and that distance, that's to the armpit, and that distance there is in inches. It's 13 inches. So that's 34 rows, and that is 13 inches. So if you want to make it longer or shorter, you can. And that's the armpit. And then when you get there, what we do is we start this row and we reduce it by, so we cast off 3 stitches at the beginning of that row, then we knit to the end, and then we cast on off 3, and then we knit to the end, then we cast off 2, and then 2, and then 1, and then 1, and then 1, and then 1, and that is your arm shaping. So at the beginning of each of these rows, at the beginning of the rows, you cast off 3, then you go along here, you cast off 3, come back here, cast off 2, go to the end of the row, cast off 2, and then 1, 1, 1, 1, and that's your arm shaping done. Then what we do is we start the neck shaping. So we'll come along here, and by then you are down to 36. That there is 36 stitches before you start the neck shaping. 36 stitches, because you've lost 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So you've lost 7 and 7 from your 50 stitches. So your 50 minus 7 and 7 is 36. You've got 36 left over. So before you start the V, you've got 36. So half of 36 is 18. So you've got 18 stitches before there. So you knit 16 stitches, and then you knit 2 together. So you'll be down to 17. And then you add a new piece of yarn on there, and you knit 2 together, and you'll have 17 stitches by the time you get to there. Now, for this neck opening, that is the neck opening there. Does that look like the neck opening? I suppose it does. You're going to reduce it every other row by 2 stitches. So 1 here and 1 here. So, and then what happens is when you get to the shoulder, which is about there, you add 2 stitches, and then you add 6, because if you follow the pattern, that will be 10 stitches from there to there. So the neck hole is 10 stitches wide, and there's a 2, a 2 and a 6 to get you back to your 36 stitches from there to there, and then you reform the arms round there. So you add 1, 1, 2, 3, add 1, 1, 2, 3, then you knit it straight to the end and cast off your 50 stitches. Okay, does that make sense to you, Joe?
I think so.
Yeah.
I've seen you do that before, so.
Yeah, and then what you do is you fold it over along this line there, so that you're 2, so that folds over, and then you sew up that with that, and that with that, and so you've sewn along there and there, and that's it, done. And this might be very basic for a lot of people, but for people that are new to knitting and this is their first garment, which is the idea, because this is a very basic pattern, you know, it's a very simple construction. I made it deliberately simple so that I could try to knit it in 24 hours. But what I've ended up with is a very simple pattern. So now I'm going to cast on. Thanks, Joe. So at the beginning there of the pattern, if you've got the pattern, it says, for this vest I used 9mm needles, and I used 4 strands of DK yarn run together. So there's my 4 balls of DK that I'm just going to use for demonstration. I'm not going to knit the whole thing again. I'm just going to knit a little swatch and show you some of the techniques that I used. So they're run together. The 4 strands are all knitted together at the same time. So I'm going to ask Joe now to film me casting on. Okay, so there's my 4 strands, and I'm just going to make a slip knot there, and so that's my first stitch. Now I'm using what I usually use actually, which is the knitted cast on method. So a knitted cast on, normally I said this when I was making it, normally when I was taught as a kid, the mantra for knitting is in, round, through, off, or the mantra I was taught as a kid by my mum or my nan. But with the knitted cast on, it's in, round, on, or in, round, through, on. In, round, through, and then there's a little twist. So it's a twist like that and on. In, round, through, twist, on. Sorry, Joe, I'm moving it around on as I'm doing it, and it's quite dark. In, round, through, twist, on. In, round, through, twist, on. In, round, through, twist, on. Okay. So Kitty's vest that I actually end up making, it came out as 20 inches wide, and to do that I cast on 50 stitches. So you need to cast on 50 stitches. I'm not going to cast on 50 stitches now because I've already knitted it. I'm just showing you the casting on. In, round, through, on. Okay, so if you cast on 50 stitches, and then once you've done that, you need to knit garter stitch 34 rows of plain knitting. And obviously I'm not going to knit 34 rows of plain knitting, but I will knit a few rows and then I'll come back to you. So a lot of you might find this very basic, but what I'm trying to do is make it as easy as possible for new knitters to be able to follow this process. So I think that's enough just for demonstration purposes. That's enough stitches on there. So that's how that will look. And now I'm going to start knitting. So I mean, you've got to assume that I've got 56 stitches on there. I haven't. I don't know how many I have got. But now I'm going to knit. So and all this I was going to say recipe then. All this pattern takes is it's just the one stitch, so it's just a knit stitch. There's no purling in this pattern at all. So in, round, through, on. In, round, through.
You're casting on.
I'm casting on again. And now I'm knitting it now. I'm knitting it now, Joe. I am, promise. In, round, through, on. There we go. Okay, so let's try and...
Try and keep it still.
Okay, so I'm just doing a knit in, round, through, off. In, round, through, off. In, round, through, off. In, round, through, off. So yeah, you've just got to do that now for 34 rows, 50 stitches a row. Okay, so I'm just coming to the end of the first row there, Joe. In, round, through, off. 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 So there's the first row done. So now I just carry on with on the other side, and I just knit. I don't purl, just knit. So it's in, round, through, off, in, round, through, off. Okay, and when I get to the end of that row, I'll show you what you do when you get to the arm shaping at row 35.
So because you're knitting all the wool together, there's not going to be loads of ends hanging?
No. Well, there will be ends to darn in, but what happens is, say for instance, I've got these four balls. Where's the other one gone? There, on the floor. That one's going to run out first. So when I get to the end of that one, I'll just tie another piece of yarn on, a different colour. And when I knitted kitties, I just had the big basket of wool, and I just picked out colours randomly. I didn't think there was no thought put into it. They were just completely random. I did have a big ball of grey that I started with, which is like an acrylic grey, because I didn't mix my fibres, because it was just just a bit of fun trying to knit it in a day, and I just used stuff that I wasn't going to use in any other project. But apart from that, it was pretty random. There was no thought was put into the colours at all. It was just stuff that I didn't want. I chucked it all in a basket, and then I just knit it. But when I ran out of the grey, then it got a bit busy, and a bit more colourful. But I didn't run out of the grey till I got to the back on the vest. So right, so that's the end of the second row, but obviously you're going to carry on and you are going to knit 34 rows. What we're going to now do, so you've knitted up to there, so we're now going to cast off 3 stitches, which is row 35. So we're going to cast off these 3 stitches, then we're going to knit to the end of the row, and when we come back we'll cast off 3 stitches there and knit to the end of the row. So let me just show you casting off 3 stitches, Joe. So I'm just going to knit the stitch normally, knit 1, knit 2, and then I'm going to pull that one over that one. So that's 1 cast off. Then I'm going to knit the next stitch, and I'm going to pull that one over there. So that's 2 cast off, and then the next one, knit that, and that's your 3 cast off stitches at the beginning of row 35. And then you knit to the end of the row, and you should have 47 stitches on your needles. Then at the beginning of the next row you do exactly the same, cast off 3, and you'll have 44 stitches. At the beginning of the next row you cast off 2, which will leave you with 42, and the next row you cast off 2, leaving you with 40. And then for the next 4 rows, you just cast off 1 stitch at the beginning of each row. Then the following row, row 43, we're going to start the neck shaping. So can I just say, so what by that point, what's happened, I deliberately did it this way to make it easy, so you haven't got to think about the neck shaping and the arm shaping at the same time. So you do your 3, your 2, your 1 and your 1 there, and then you can start, so you're going straight up from there on the arm shaping, but then the next row we can start worrying about the neck shaping, and that's the next thing I need to show you how to do. Okay, so with the neck shaping, so you're on row 43 now, and what you need to do is knit the first 16 stitches and then you knit 2 stitches together. So say I've knitted my 16 stitches, and then the next thing I do is knit 2 together. So I'm just going to put that through two stitches. It's a bit tight. And then just knit those 2 together. And then that is one side of the center of my V. So I'm going to leave those there, and now I'm going to create the other side of the center of my V here. So I need to attach 4 pieces of yarn because I'm going to come back to those. So I'm going to now have 2 separate sides. So let me just, what I'm going to do is just break them off. You won't be breaking them off, you'll be putting new pieces of yarn in. Might be hard to break that acrylic, Joe. Oh, no, right, there we go. So you'll have all your balls of yarn hanging on off of there, and then you're going to attach another 4 to this side. I'm on the floor. Okay. You could just tie them on if you wanted. So that's one, this is one side of my V here, and now I'm going to create the other side of my V there. So I'm going to knit those first 2 together, like that, and then I will.
So you just held on to all of it?
Well, I have, but you could tie it on there if you wanted. I mean, it doesn't need to look pretty, but you know, it's not necessarily thought of as good form to be tying yarn. But there we are. So I now have 2 sides, and I'll show you. I'll just get to the end of the row and show you. Sorry, the needles keep knocking on the table. So there we are. So now I have 2 separate sides, and that's the center of my V there.
Keep it still.
Obviously, when you knit it, you'll have an equal amount of stitches on either side. In actual fact, at this point, you'll knit 16. You'll have 17 stitches. You don't need to look at that. They'll have this with them. So you'll have 17 stitches on either side. Now the next row, you just knit it. You just knit those, so you don't do any increases, any decreases in the middle. You just knit it. You don't need to film it really, Joe. So you just knit it as normal, and then the following row you do another decrease. So that will be, so this is row, So we've just done row 43. I'm now doing row 44. So I knit 17 stitches. Just show you quickly, just those last two. 1, 2. So you knit your 17 stitches, you leave your gap in the middle, and then you pick up the other yarns that you've got hanging off the back and you knit the other side 17 stitches there. I'll just show you that quickly, Joe, before you. So that is how it's looking with your gap in the middle, and you'll have 17 stitches on either side. Yeah, so now when we come back this way, we're going to do some decreasing. So I'll just show you that and then we'll stop for a bit. So the next row, so I'm now doing row 45. So I knit 15. So I knit 15 because there's 17 stitches on there. So I knit 15. And so it's just, there'll be just 2 stitches left on. Right, so 15, and then I knit 2 together. Tight. There's me 2 together there. So I've done the decrease at the neck, and then again I'm just going to do a knit 2 together. There, and then knit the 15. So that's the neck shaping. So you just keep doing that now until you get, so one row you do a decrease, one row you just knit it, one row you do decreases, the next row you just knit it until you get to row sorry Joe, and so you row 51, knit 12, knit 2 together until you get to row 52, and you should have 13 stitches on either side, and on rows 52, 53 and 54 you just knit your 13 stitches either side of the neck. Okay, so once you've knitted rows 52, 53 and 54, 13 stitches either side of the neck hole, that puts you at this point here, Joe. Can you got my finger in it? Have you? Mm-hmm. So that puts you, so you're halfway. You're exactly halfway. And then what we're going to do is we're going to add 2 stitches on the next row. We're going to add 2 stitches there and 2 stitches there. And then on the following row, we're just going to fill in. So there's that width across there is 10 stitches. So we've got 2 that we're going to do on this row, 2 which again we're going to do on this row, and then we're going to add another 6 the following row. So I'll just show you quickly how I increase. Yep, so what I'm doing now, I'm going to add 2 stitches in there and 2 stitches in there. That's the neck hole, which obviously is much bigger. Your neck hole will be bigger than this because this is just to show you. So I just get to the neck hole, and so I'm going to add 2 stitches in there. So I'm going to do to add them is I'm just going to go through there and just like the casting on really. So there's 1 in, round, through, twist, on, in, round, through, twist, on. So that's those two created. And then over here, the other side of the neck hole, I'm going to do the same. So just going to put it through there, in, round, twist, on. And then I would just knit, I'd carry on knitting to the end of the row. But when we come back round on the next row, we're going to add a further 6 onto here. So pretend that I've come to that and I've come back and I've come back, and now I'm going to add the 6. So I add the 6. So just going to show you how it joins up when you add the 6 in. I'm not going.
Is this you joining the two sides?
This is me joining the two sides, but I'm going to abbreviate it because you don't need to see me add 6 stitches. But you're going to add 6 stitches like this, 1, and then you'll keep going till you get to 6. Okay, so you've added your 6 on there, and all you're going to do is when you come round, once you've done your 6 are on there, and then you're just going to go, just going to knit that like that, and you will probably want to tie the other side in somehow, and then you could darn it in afterwards, but there you go. And that is your neck hole. I'll just go to the end this time. And that's it, and you're all back on one piece, and you should have, at that point, obviously your neck hole is going to be a lot bigger than that, but at that point you will have 36 stitches, and you'll be on row, that'll be row 56, you'll be finishing there, and then row 57 to 65 you just knit backwards and forwards your 36 stitches. Okay, and now I'm going to show you what happens then, because at that point you are going to make your arms shaping. You're going to make the arm shaping, so you're going to come back out again. So on row 66 you're going to add 1 stitch in at the arm. So before you start, there you go, there's your 1 stitch added, and then you'll knit that row and you'll have 37. And then at the beginning of the next row you add 1 stitch, at the beginning of the next row you add 1 stitch, at the beginning of the next row you add 1 stitch, at the beginning of the next row. How many ones have I said? 4. So you do 1 stitch for 4 rows, 2 stitches for 2 rows, and 3 stitches for 3 rows, and you'll end back up with your 50 stitches. And let me just show the drawing, Joe. I've thrown it on the floor now. So you've added your 1, your 1, your 1, your 1, your 2, your 2, your 3, your 3, and you've got your 50 stitches back on. And then you just keep knitting until you get to row 107, and then you cast off your 50 stitches. I've done casting off, haven't I? Yes, I did casting off when I showed you how to shape the neck hole. So you cast off your 50 stitches there, and then you start the sides, and then you're done. So I just quite roughly sewed it up. I didn't follow. I mean, I just tacked them together. But so there you are, finished garment. I sewed a few ends in and trimmed off a few ends, but apart from that, that was it. It's pretty rough and ready as garments go, and you know, I've cut loads of corners and tried to do it as simply as I can, but yeah, if it is your first garment, it's a quick knit. So that's it for today. What I'm going to leave you with is I think Joe's going to do a close-up on the finished garment, and we'll overlay that with some of Kitty's music. So our daughter Kitty's music that she's written. Bye.